Welcome back to the Piping Pastor Theology Talks. Today we'll be continuing our discussion of positive masculinity with number 2 in the series. Well, today I'm enjoying a new acquisition. This lovely little pipe here, I'm not sure how good the light's going to get that, is a pipe by Fader. And Fader was a tobacconist in Baltimore in the late 1800s. They were a family-owned business for several generations, sold out to corporate interest, and then closed in 2017. But while they were a family-owned operation, they employed a master pipe maker who made pipes just for them with the name Fader. And this is one of those. So I got this as a batch at an estate sale. You know, estate sale is one of my favorite things to do. Came with this one, a few gray bows, and then a 2-star pipe by Lee. Straight bulldog, so a very Ethan type pipe. And I had intended on restoring that and then doing the whole display thing. I messaged Ethan about that and was like, hey, what methods do you use? Because he's obviously the pipe by Lee restoration expert in the YTBC. And he gave me a few pointers about what he does and so forth. So I had intended on doing the restoration and a before and after picture and channeling my inner Ethan. But it was a clocked stem, and in the effort to heat and turn to get it lined up again, I snapped the stem. So that pipe will, I'm afraid, not be making an appearance. But when I get the other ones finished, the Admiral and the Duke and the little gray bow prince, and I think there's a Levat in there as well, they'll make appearances. So. And in my new pipe today, I am smoking my Burley number 4 mix. So the Cornelian Deal Burley number 4 that I blended up with some of the Balkan Supreme from Pipe Puffer. That turned out to be anything but Supreme. Well, positive masculinity. Got a comment on the last video I did from our brother Intelligent Robert, and he noted something that I think is important and warrants discussion. He noted that for him growing up, there was never any question about what manhood was, what masculinity was meant to be, how a man was supposed to behave. He was taught in those various different ways. It was part of his upbringing, his education as a young man. And while I think that's wonderful, I think that is missing from a great deal of family and family units, both this and previous generation. In effect, that generational nod, that rearing, that transferring of legacy, that education, that training, it gets missed. And I'm not one to say that this is just a problem for this generation or the previous generation. Like, oh, back in the good old days, everyone trained their children in the way they should have been raised. And this is just a modern day problem, because that's not the case. If you look at the biblical example, read through Judges, read through Kings, you'll see that generation after generation, the next generation that came up would make mistakes because they weren't poured into by the generation before. The very first generation that was born after the Israelites got into the promised land wandered away from God, started worshiping other idols. The very next generation, their parents were the ones who came with Joshua into the promised land. They saw firsthand the miracles the Lord had done. And yet, they did not train their children in that. They didn't raise their children up. And I don't think it's because they're evil. I don't think it's because they're they're neglectful, and I don't think it's in the modern case either that parents are neglectful in that way. What I think is we place too great an importance on other things. Working long hours, endeavoring in various different schemes and side hustles to make money, to provide our children with worldly security and things, material items. Um, it's a sacrifice to take time away from that to give to your children, but that's the thing that really matters. That generational nod, that pouring into your children, that's what really lasts. If you leave more to your children than you leave in your children, then you failed, right? But as Smarty Bob pointed out, for him, his parents took the time. His father took the time. Hey, this is, you do A, B, and C. This is the things that you should do. This is how you should behave. And I think if we had more of that, if we had people less concerned about stuff and things and financial security, and more concerned about moral and ethical security, moral and ethical teaching, spiritual teaching, passing on to the next generation your understanding of God, or whatever spiritual practice you practice, right? Pouring it into your children, not indoctrinating them and forcing them into it, but teaching, guiding, directing, right? You've walked the path before, bring them along behind you. But sadly, for thousands of years, that hasn't been the case. People for generations and generations and generations have been busy. They've been busier with things of the world and things of their own life than they have with the generation behind them. And as a result, many people grow up not knowing what masculinity is, what femininity is, what even means to be a man or a woman, or where that line is drawn, and that understanding of behavior is. And so, as I said, a couple of videos ago, they start making stuff up. Are searching for rules and trying to follow them, which led us to chivalry, which now leads us into Victorian or Edwardian ethic or morals and behavior. Now, what's interesting is when you see this movement from chivalry to gentlemanly behavior, so from knights to gentlemen, it's about the progressive move of society at the time. Also, has a lot to do with economy, and population growth, and there's a various other contingent factors. But the thing is, there's a movement from the ruling elite, the martial law type things of chivalry, to gentlemanly behavior, and it goes from being codes of conduct to rules of interaction. And I have some here, of course, because I am a research geek, and I think it's important to get facts. So there are some. These are like what you would call like social rules of etiquette for gentlemen. Things like always wear your gloves in the street, in church, and at other formal occasions, but take them off when you eat. Lift your hat to a lady when you greet her in public. Between gentlemen, a small nod of the head is acceptable. Here's one for us. Never smoke in front of a lady or allow them to detect smoke on you, which is the reason for smoking hats and smoking jackets. Stand when a lady enters the room. Help a lady with her coat. Offer to bring a lady refreshments. Offer your arm as an escort. Never refer to another person by their first name in public. Never curse or discuss impolite subjects when ladies are present. Never eat and drink wearing gloves. I think I mentioned that one. But it's a whole long list of rules for Victorian etiquette for a gentleman. Now, being a gentleman is also, of course, largely based on status and accomplishment and things of that nature. But what's interesting is the rules for chivalry really can only be applied to knights. As I said, a peasant farmer could not follow all the rules of chivalry, right? A peasant farmer could not be proficient in broadsword, axe, and horsemanship because they wouldn't have any of those things. But all the rules for gentlemanly behavior in the Victorian era were able to be employed regardless of station. So it didn't matter if you were, a high-born aristocrat or a low-born peasant working in a factory or a field. You could still act in a gentlemanly way. So you could still follow those rules and act like a gentleman. They wouldn't call you a gentleman because that was still status, but they could refer to you as someone who acted like a gentleman, acted appropriately around women. And indeed, these things were acted upon by people in all ranges of social classes. And again, it's not a bad list of rules, right? Being courteous and being polite, and thinking of others ahead of yourself in various different social situations, they're all good things. But the point I want to make based on the last video and this video is that all of these things, all these rules for chivalrous behavior, for gentlemanly behavior, however you want to define it, all these rules are about behavior. They're all about what you should do. This goes back to the poem I read about Neruda. It's the rule that society placed on him that he chafed against, right? Because none of these things really say who you are. Who are you meant to be as a person? As a human male person, what is the central core of what it is that you're supposed to be? Because all these behaviors should be an outgrowth of who you are internally. If you're a gentleman on the inside, then you'll act as a gentleman on the outside. If you're chivalrous on the inside, you'll act in a chivalrous manner on the outside. If you're just affecting these behaviors, then you're simply wearing a mask and acting. So to really find out what it means, what masculinity means, what it means to be a man, you have to go a little bit deeper than just the outward appearance, the outward behaviors. You have to look inside. And that will be the one for next time. So I doubt I'll get another video out prior to Christmas. We have family coming in, and I'll be frosting the Christmas cake here in a couple days. I'm marzipaning it today. Thank you again for pushing me on that, Trucking Piper Bob. So we'll be doing all kinds of Christmas festivities and so forth. So I will be enjoying some pipes, but I don't know if I'll make any content. So between now and then, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, if indeed you celebrate Christmas. And otherwise, have a lovely week. And as always, happy reading.